So let me start with some shoutouts. Obviously, thank you so much to Codiop and to Ruth for inviting me to this session. It's really an honor closing a course. I know that one of you is graduating, so congratulations. Today I would like to talk with you about imposter syndrome. And this is a very personal talk. Basically, I will tell you some pieces of my life. So let's start with presentation. Who am I? Well, hello everyone. I'm Matteo. I'm a senior software developer, pizza lover, traveler, runner, blockchain and crypto enthusiast, not in this order. I was born in the south of Italy, in Foggia. Then I moved in Rome. I worked there and lived there for a few years. Then I moved to Milan and I stayed there like 5 years. And now I'm in Barcelona. I'm working for Ubeeqo Mobility Group in the digital station branch. Basically, we are connecting the whole fleet of Europcar, roughly 500,000 vehicles, digitally. So it's a quite challenging project. This is my handle on LinkedIn, and that's my usual trademark on Slack, the Italian gesture. What do you want from me? So now that you know me, I would like to know you a little. So I would like to start with a very simple question. Have you ever felt like you don't belong where you are? Is everyone at your office or at your course way more talented than you? And do you think that you don't deserve what you achieved? For answering to this question, I prepared a poll. Please go to Slido, that is slide.do, and enter this code, ISQ1. In the meanwhile, I will go to the wall of this website and let's see results flowing. Don't be shy, I saw 20 people connected to this call, so I'm expecting 20 answers. I'll give you a few more seconds for answering to this question.
So just to just to clarify, if we say yes to one of the questions, we should reply yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
One yes for each of these questions. It's a yes. Okay, so it seems that 80% roughly of the audience is feeling this way. And I would like to ask you another question, that is, do you feel like this right now at your current workplace or during this course? Use the same website with a different code that is ISQ2, please. I'll give you 10 more seconds for answering to this question. Anyway, from these numbers, it seems that situation is a little bit better right now, but at least once in your lifetime, you experience this feeling. So I will get back to the presentation now. Thanks a lot for answering to these questions. And so I will show you what happened when I presented this very same talk in Milan last year for Google Developers Group. To the first question, they answered to yes, 82% of people. And for the second question, roughly 60% answered yes. So it seems that it's quite common feeling this way, and I'm not the only one. So why I decided to talk about this imposter syndrome? Well, last year I was in Mungat at the beach between one sunbath and a swim. I was checking my email and I saw the headline of an article that was quite interesting regarding this imposter syndrome. I read the article, was quite good, but I had to say something around these topics. So I started writing a post on LinkedIn, but as you may know, over there is a limit of 1,500 charts. So it was not enough for me. I wrote this post anyway on LinkedIn, and then I prepared some slides. And then from some slides, I ended up with more than 80 slides. So the purpose of this talk is sharing my experience around this topic, obviously, and show you that it's not that bad after all. So I promised you that I would talk about my story, and so let's start. In 2015, in January, I joined Viacom, that is a media company, owner of many brands like MTV, Comedy Central, Nickelodeon, Paramount. Projects were quite interesting. I was working with really talented people. I enjoyed it a lot, and it was quite a good experience. We worked on many international projects that were recognized even by competitors. We had an impact on the company because this project, like Playplex, was scaled in multiple countries. We reached millions of people. Then we did the same exercise with website. So having one single technology for deploying multiple sites of multiple brands. And this is what Viacom is still doing right now. But in 2018, in January, after 3 years working on these projects, I was working for an amazing company on nice projects with cool people, but I needed something different. So I started looking around. I didn't know by that time what I was looking at. So I started looking at LinkedIn for new opportunities. And in the meanwhile, I was studying even some new technologies, totally unrelated with my day-to-day work. Then in July, I went to Croatia on vacation. And this is the view from the house that I booked during those vacations. And this view triggered in my mind a continuous thought, that is, what am I still doing in Milan? Because this is what I need every day: sea, sun, and sun. I'm from the south of Italy. I'm quite used to this environment with sea, sun, sand. So living in Milan, it was kind of tricky to me. Nevertheless, I had to come back to Milan after the vacations, and that idea was still on my mind. Well, just to be clear, Milan is a wonderful city. I lived 5 years there. It was fantastic. I had a great experience. I left there great friends. And as you can see on the first picture, it's a nice city, but it's gray and cold for long months. And as I said, I'm not that used to that weather. So I started looking to new opportunities out there. And I was going quite frequently on LinkedIn. But out there are so many opportunities. So I needed to narrow down the list, add some filters to my search. And I remember that I always loved Barcelona. So I started finding opportunities in this city. There were quite good openings. One of them caught my eyes in particular. This company was looking for senior PHP developers that were excited to change their career and start a new experience on Golang. So it was interesting, but the problem was that the job offer was expired. Nevertheless, I wrote to the recruiter a so-called cold email. I presented myself, and then I told her, I'd love to take part to the hiring process. Is that position still available? I knew that the position was closed, but I tried it. And I was lucky because after a few days, she wrote me back and we started talking about this opportunity. I started the process with her company, that was the recruitment company, and then I started the interviews with Europe Car Mobility Group and Ubeeqo. Some steps as usual, recruiter, HR, technical assessment, blah, blah, blah. And then in September, I got an offer from Ubeeqo. So well, it was time to ride to Barcelona. There were like very difficult weeks because of it, I had to prepare my moving to Barcelona. In the meanwhile, I was working for Viacom. I was organizing everything. But in the end, in December, it was time to say goodbye to my dear friends over there. And on December the 27th, I took a one-way flight to Barcelona, and I started my new chapter, new chapter of my life. Then in January the 2nd, 2019, I started the onboarding in Ubeeqo. So I was getting onboarded on the new technologies, the new business field, because I never worked in the automotive field. And some problems started by doing this onboarding. Why? Because it was completely new to me. Technologies, business field. So I started wondering what I'm doing here. I'm overwhelmed by all this new stuff. I was used to work on other technologies, PHP, Java, MongoDB, in other business fields. Here it was completely different. We were using Golang, microservices communicating through Kafka, deployed on Google Cloud Platform. It was really interesting, obviously, because I was learning a lot, but maybe it was too much. And so I started having some doubts. And the question that I asked you at the beginning were bugging me. So why everyone in this office is way more talented than me? How is it possible that they hired me in the first place? What were they thinking? And what the hell am I doing here? I don't belong here. So I had these doubts in my mind, bugging me every day. So obviously it was imposter syndrome or self-doubt or whatever you want to call it. Let's start with the definition of this imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome was first defined in 1978 by two psychologists, Pauline Clance and Susan Imes, as a feeling of phoniness in people who believe that they are not intelligent, capable, or creative, despite evidence of high achievement. A couple of definitions more, one from Cambridge Dictionary. This is a feeling that your achievements are not real, or that you do not deserve praise or success. Last definition from psychologist Valerie Young. People who feel like imposters have high self-expectations around competence. Obviously, no one likes to fail, but imposters experience shame when they fail. While I was doing this research around this topic, around imposter syndrome, I realized that there is no one imposter syndrome. There are actually 5 kinds of imposter syndrome. There is the perfectionist, for example, that is setting high goals for themselves, and they are control freaks, so they need to do by themselves things if they want to have done right. Then there is the superwoman or superman. They are pushing themselves to work harder and harder to measure up. Then there are the natural geniuses that basically, if they don't do things right on the first try, they feel ashamed. And same if they take too much time to master something. There are the soloists that are refusing assistance from other people. They are not asking to be helped, and they're doing it because they think that asking for help would reveal their phoniness. And then there are the experts that believe that they will never know enough around the topic, and they obviously fear being exposed as inexperienced or unknowledgeable. While I was doing this research, I also realized that there is some people that believe that it is smarter and more capable that they really are. And even this phenomenon has got a definition, is named Dunning-Kruger Effect. This cognitive bias was named after the researchers that first described it, so David Dunning and Justin Kruger. These two psychologists made some investigations, and they came up to very interesting results. Like in this diagram, you will see the results of some tests around grammar, humor, and logic made by these two researchers. As you can see in this diagram, people that placed in the 12th percentile, they were estimating their performance placed in the 62nd percentile. So they were overestimating their performance. Then also note that higher scores were underestimating their performance. So for summarizing in simple words, high achievers have self-doubts while low achievers are flamboyant. This diagram is also interesting because it's showing our path to knowledge. Usually when we approach a new topic, we know nothing and our confidence is very low. Then when we start studying this topic, obviously we know something more, but usually we get a spike in confidence and we reach the peak of month stupid because we take stupid decisions. We feel overconfident. Then we realize that we are not that good on this topic and we fall to the valley of despair. If we are strong enough to continue studying the topic, we go on the slope of enlightenment. So our confidence is growing as is growing even our knowledge. And then we reach the plateau of sustainability where our confidence is quite high and we have even quite broad knowledge on the topic. And here I want to give you an example of how bad is this Dunning-Kruger effect. There was this guy that confused the invisible ink property of lemon juice with optical parameters of everything else in the world. Basically, this guy smeared all over his face some lemon juice and then went to rob 2 banks. Later that day, he was caught by the police and he asked to the policeman, how is it possible? I had lemon juice on my face. How did you recognize me? This guy was not that stupid because he did a test before going to the bank. He took a selfie with a Polaroid and the picture was white, but not because of the lemon juice, because the film was defective. So what is this Dunning-Kruger effect? Basically, incompetent people are not able to assess and recognize the quality of their own work. And moreover, they are not even able to assess competence of other people. And so they always feel better, more capable, or more knowledgeable around a topic than others. In many cases, as David Dunning said, this incompetence is not leaving people disoriented, perplexed, or cautious. Instead, this incompetence is driving these people, is blessing these people with inappropriate confidence. And so they feel like super knowledgeable. Just to clarify a couple of points, not only incompetent people are affected by Dunning-Kruger. Just for making an example, there are some genuine experts in some areas, for example, a scientist, that may mistakenly believe that this intelligence and knowledge could be carried over in other areas, like writing a book or talking in talk shows. And this is quite common if you think about it. And last point that I want to clarify is that Dunning-Kruger effect is not synonymous with low IQ. And this scientist and wannabe writer example should explain you quite well. Every one of us is affected by this phenomenon quite frequently, I would say. And we don't realize it because, as I showed you, we are not able to assess this situation. So I cannot say if I'm affected by Dunning-Kruger effect on some topics, but I can say for sure that self-doubts and imposter syndrome, yes, I have it. So I'm the only one having these self-doubts. Well, as the poll that we had at the beginning of the talk showed us, and even some research showed us, I'm not the only one. It's been estimated that nearly 70% of people will experience signs and symptoms of this imposter phenomenon at least once in their life. And this imposter syndrome and this self-doubt are quite common across all industries. It's not specific to IT, but obviously the increasing pressure to be successful in the IT, to be always updated by the new technologies, new programming languages, whatever, is taking a toll on the employees, affecting more than half workers, me included, as it seems. There is this anonymous workplace social network named Blind that in summer of 2018 conducted a survey asking to their users a pretty simple question. Do you suffer from imposter syndrome? The user base of this social network includes like 44,000 Microsoft employees, 29,000 from Amazon, 11,000 from Google. And at the end of this survey, like 10,000 people answered, and the result was that 58% of people were suffering from imposter syndrome. And here you can see data split by company. There are some companies where it's less evident, like Apple and Cisco, companies that instead are more affected, employees of some other companies that are more affected, like Expedia, Salesforce. But nevertheless, numbers are impressive. So which are the common traits of this imposter syndrome? Well, obviously, you have difficulty accepting praise. You are overworked, you are an overworker, you feel the need to be the best, you are described as a perfectionist. The fear of failure can paralyze you. You avoid showing confidence. You actually dread success. You are comparing your struggles to those of the others. You associate praise with charm over actual talent. You focus more on what you haven't done, and you are convinced you are not enough. And which are the factors that are contributing to this syndrome? Well, for starters, nature and nurture. Nature because some people are more than others, emotionally reactive and self-focused. Nurture in the form of childhood conditioning instead. I think that it happened to every one of us when we were a child. We were labeled by he's a good child or clever child, funny child, shy child. And in the process, we probably suppressed our real feelings. Then there could be family expectations or perfectionist parents. And the recurring sentence, you can do better, I know you can. A change in setting, like academic or professional. You go to university, you are taking a new course, you are going to a new workplace. Then gender stereotypes, racial identities, or even medical conditions like anxiety and depression. How this syndrome is affecting us? Well, obviously it's reducing our productivity because we are slower. Then we are not showing confidence, so we are poor decision makers. We are not sharing our ideas, our thoughts. We are engaging in self-protective behaviors. We are frequently seeking external validation. We are poor team members because we are not actively participating in storming phase, in brainstorming phases. And then we feel the need to prepare or work much harder than necessary to make us feel confident. What is the cost that we are paying for this syndrome? Well, obviously, we may be missing out some career or life opportunities. We are not growing as human beings because we are defending ourselves from the outside world. We lose sight of who we are and we are sabotaging our lives, obviously. You may think that only regular people like us are affected by this imposter syndrome, but there are many famous people that were suffering and they are still suffering from this phenomenon. I will give you a few examples, like Sheryl Sandberg. She's the CEO of Facebook and she has got a foundation in her name. She said that when she was in college and she was called in a class, she was sure that she was close to embarrass herself. And when she was taking a test, she was sure that test was not that good. And when she was excelling it, well, she said, okay, I fooled everyone yet again, but one day I will be exposed. And now, even now, there are still days when she wakes up and she's feeling like a fraud. Some other examples, David Bowie, that he was kind of obsessively writing and performing because he had a problem of low self-esteem. And then Serena Williams, Meryl Streep, Tom Hanks, Lady Gaga, Ariana Huffington. So is this imposter syndrome all bad? Well, as I showed you, there are so many successful people that have experienced or they're still experiencing this imposter syndrome. And they achieved a lot in their life. So it's possible to live with it, survive with it, and doing great things. The key, as everything in life, is what we do with this imposter syndrome, with these self-doubts. If we allow these self-doubts to push us down, this is limiting us because we are hiding who we really are and what we are really capable of. But if we recognize the situation, we see and accept ourselves for who we are, and we find the courage to go for what we want, then we can use this imposter syndrome as a fuel for our journey. And on this specific point, I would like to read the word from Alice Petal. She is a software engineer and blogger. She said that she credits her success to imposter syndrome because she wouldn't have worked half as hard as she did without having this imposter syndrome, because she was constantly trying to prove to herself and to other people that she can do this, the software engineer. So that's very nice, but what should we do for tackling this situation? I think that we should be open with people around us because they are surely eager to help. Then we should find a mentor or a friend to talk about the situation and to take inspiration from. We should identify our strength and recognize our victories. We should not be afraid of making mistakes. We should accept that we had some role in our successes. Then I think that we should store in a file all nice things that people told us. And then last but not least, we will die eventually, so stop being scared. I promised you that I would tell you about my life, about my story. So back to my story. I was quite fond since I was young about martial arts and Oriental philosophy. I studied karate, for example, and in karate there is a specialty named kata that in the end is a fight against an invisible enemy. And while doing that, while fighting this invisible enemy, you are using your best moves. So what I did was going through the points that I just showed you. And with that, I was able to put things in the right perspective and regain balance. So let's do it together. Be open with people around us. They are surely eager to help. These guys, George, Edu, Hector, Adam, was the team that welcomed me in Ubeeqo when I joined the company. They helped me a lot, and they are still doing it, as well as all other colleagues. What I'm doing is trying to return the favor every day, helping them as much as I can. Find a mentor or a friend to talk about the situation or to take inspiration from. And there are some people, family, friends, former colleagues, former bosses, and some famous people. I learned a lot from them, and I'm still doing it. Identify our strengths and recognize our victories. I don't know if I read this sentence in a book or I heard it in a podcast, but I truly believe that people born in small towns quite often have huge dreams and a limited dedication to make them come true. Well, as I said at the beginning of the presentation, I was born in Foggia. It is a small town in the south of Italy, as you can see here in the map. I had, and I still have, big dreams and goals to achieve. And I'm stubborn, and I will not stop until I get there. A few examples. In the center of the picture, it's me when I was in high school. On the right, still me a few years later in New York, Times Square, in the Viacom offices, not as a guest, but working there. Another example, as I said, in January 2018, I was looking for a new challenge. So I started studying different topics. I was always interested in crypto and blockchain. I was reading blogs, I was going to meetups, but I never took the opportunity to study in deep these topics. So that time was a good opportunity. So I enrolled in two courses online, one from University of Nicosia, held by Andreas Antonopoulos and Antonis Polemitis, that are two gurus in the Bitcoin field. This was more focused on the economics of the blockchain. The other course was held by Princeton University, organized by Coursera. It was focused on developing application and smart contracts on blockchain. When I wrote this stuff on LinkedIn, I was harassed by many recruiters asking me to join in recruiting processes. One of these companies seemed quite interesting, so I started the recruitment process. It was quite long, 7 steps, but in the end, in March, I got an offer from this company, that is Bitmain. Maybe you know what is this company. This is the biggest crypto-related company in the world, with a massive influence and reach in the Bitcoin field. It's huge. Last example. I've always been quite shy since I was a child, but nevertheless, I'm here talking to you. And I went to Russia last year in Tumin, opening the Google Developer Fest with this talk as a keynote. And I had so much fun those days. Don't be afraid of making mistakes. Here, I just attached a few examples of mistakes that I made in just a few weeks last year. As you can see here, fixes, pipeline broken because of mistakes that I made, and hot fixes, reverting commits. I made plenty of mistakes, and I'm still doing it. And it's not that bad, because by making mistakes, we learn. Hopefully, we will learn how to not make the same mistakes twice. Accept that we have some role in our successes. Well, I think that it was not only luck if I worked for great companies with amazing people. And it was not luck at all that I was able to pass technical tests, interviews, and then got job offers from many companies, from startups to big corporations. I was just bold enough to chase and face these challenges, getting out of my comfort zone. Store in a file all nice things that people told us. This letter was given me by my former colleagues of Ubeeqo, my last day of work over there. They wrote me amazing sentences. And also I got many nice messages from other people from all around the world, like Brad from US, Giuseppe from Milan, Natalie from Berlin, Daria from Minsk, Lily from New York, Fernando and Kaya from Berlin. I will read you just a few sentences that I received, because what these people were saying to me was completely different from my perception of who I am. Brad, for example, told me, there can be only one Matteo Bruno. Thank you for being such a decent human being and pleasure to work with. New team that will work with you doesn't know how blessed they are. Natalie, thank you for your patience and guidance throughout last years. Your humor has gotten me through many frustrating days. You are an incredibly skilled developer and just a round-up awesome guy. And then Daria, you have always been the most supportive and friendly colleague I have ever met. And you were always there if any help needed. This was surprising to me because I was perceiving myself and my usual behavior in a different way. And here there are some messages that I got now in Europe Car Mobility Group from my colleagues. You're the real trickster in Mongo. Thanks for not blaming anyone. Inspiring. Thanks for helping anyways and anytime. So I'll give you this pro tip. Every time that you get a message or an email that contains something nice about you, save it. It will be useful later. And then, as I told you earlier, last but not least, we will die eventually, so stop being scared. On this topic, I want to give you a few aphorisms coming from some authors and thinkers, like the first one from Tony Robbins. Stop being afraid of what could go wrong and start being excited of what could go right. Then from Susie Gassem, doubt kills more dreams than failure ever will. Last aphorism coming from Karen Salmanson, your mission, be so busy loving your life that you have no time for hate, regret, and fear. So how can we how we can convert this bad feeling in positive energy? Well, for starters, remember that you achieved a lot in your life. Just think about it. I would suggest you to do the same exercise that I just showed you, going through those steps, and you will be surprised by the fact that you did great so far. While doing this exercise, please enjoy the exciting feeling of looking back at your life, at your career, and seeing how many wonderful things happened to you. And then repeat these steps every time you need, because an extra boost of energy is always welcome. So if you go to this point and you recognize that you did great, well, congratulations, great job. Please keep in mind, don't have any fear of getting out of your comfort zone, because that's where great things happen. No one is immune from self-doubts and the imposter syndrome. We should manage this feeling and use it our own advantage to bloom and achieve our goals. I think that we should talk more to ourselves without turning us down. As you know, sport champions are doing it quite frequently to get focused, motivated, and energized. And I think that we are champions too. And then please talk to people and learn from them, because everyone is a master in something. And one more thing, the most important one, don't stop believing in yourself. That's it. Thanks a lot.